All right, good morning, everyone. If I can just have everyone joining us here in our newsroom in Austin to take a seat, we're going to get started in just a second. Good morning, everyone. My name is Matt Ewald. I serve the Texas Tribune as Senior Director of Events and Live Journalism. Welcome to those joining us in person here at the Texas Tribune studio in Austin and around the state for our conversation with Don Huffines, Republican nominee for Texas comptroller. Our program today is going to run approximately an hour, and we will have time for a brief Q&A. So to get to as many questions as possible, you can submit questions through our Q&A portal at texastribune.org/ask. texastribune.org/ask. If you're having any issues accessing, you can find one of our staff members here, and we'll help you out. We want to get to as many questions as possible. We are grateful for the support of our sponsors. Our major sponsor for today's program is Raise Your Hand Texas, and our supporting sponsors are Texas Automobile Dealers Association and Texas Electric Cooperatives. And please note that while sponsorship provides critical support for the Tribune, sponsors play no role in programming or the line of questioning for Tribune events. So today's conversation is but one of the many ways the Tribune is covering this election year. Keep the link texastribune.org/vote handy for the upcoming runoff races leading up to the general election this November. And also stay tuned for the future Texas Tribune events at texastribune.org events. Indeed, join us at the end of the month, April 29th, here in Austin and online for a conversation with the Democratic nominee for comptroller, Senator Sarah Eckhart. Tickets are now on sale for the Texas Tribune Festival, happening September 24th through 26th in downtown Austin. TribFest is where the biggest conversations shaping our state come to life. You can experience political, business, and civic leaders exploring the issues that affect your life, from education and the economy to healthcare, energy, technology, arts, and culture, and a lot more. You can buy tickets now at tribfest.org. And thank you to our Texas Tribune members who make events like this possible. Can I get a quick show of hands of those in our in-person audience who are Texas Tribune members? Can you raise your hand? Thank you so much for your support. To become a member, you can visit texastribune.org/support, or our audience in Austin today can visit with our membership director, Emily Izzetti, after the event. So let's get to today's program. A businessman and fifth-generation Texan, Don Huffines won the Republican primary in March. He previously served as state senator for Texas Senate District 16. He is in conversation today with Texas Tribune editor-in-chief Matthew Watkins. With that, I turn the program over to Matthew.
All right, thanks, Matt. Honorable Don Huffines, thank you for being here. Congratulations on your primary victory.
Oh, thank you, Matthew. I appreciate it. It's good to be here. First, let me just talk about that victory. I mean, this was really a huge win, really unprecedented. This was not whimsical. I won by a huge majority in a very competitive primary for the Republican to be the Republican nominee, and I got outspent. I worked on the campaign for over a year, but it was really a year or two in the making because I was listening to the Republican voters, and I've worked with them in the grassroots and the base for years. And our message resonated. I had a great team. I won every county in Texas but 10. I won DFW and the Houston metro areas by 63% combined. So I bring that up because I really think it sends a great message. I mean, my victory margin was 57.5% over some great candidates. I think it just echoes the fact that Texans and Republicans in general really want to find out where their money's going, how it's being spent. Is it being spent properly or not? So I just wanted to bring that up to you.
Tell me a little bit. I mean, you have history in Texas politics. You've been in the state Senate. You ran for governor in 2022. What was it about the comptroller's office? Why that office? Why now?
Well, I appreciate that question. I'm going to roll back just a minute and tell you that about the Texas Trib and why I'm here, okay, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I went to your Trib Fest, a couple of times. I was on a panel a decade ago. And the last time I was there, the reception wasn't the greatest for conservatives, right? The boo birds were out. But I knew Evan Smith very well, and as actually I'm going to the LBJ school after this event to do a lecture over there, and then I met with Sewell, your former editor or chief CEO, a few years ago, and I went to him and I said, guys, you really need a conservative voice on your paper, and what you do, and because I love media, I love papers. And he said, he got back to me, we just don't do opinion pieces. And I said, well, you need a conservative voice, but the paper is an opinion piece. It's all to the left. So it really is. So I'm here today to tell you what conservatives think, how we operate, or what we think, what we see the future of the state of Texas, because we have the answers and the solutions to the issues that affect Texas. I just wanted to get that out.
Sure, I appreciate that, and I agree. We want to have conservative voices, and on our stage and on our in our stories as well. So very much appreciate you being here and sharing your perspective on this important office. Let's talk a little bit about the comptroller's office. A statewide office, some people call it the state's accountant, right? Has a lot of influence on, how much money is available to the legislature and how it is spent. Do you have priorities that you're coming into, things you really want to focus on, assuming you win this office in November?
Of course I do. I've got a lot of priorities, Matthew. But let me just tell you how important this office is. Okay, Texas is basically the 8th largest economy in the world if we had our own GDP. The comptroller's position is constitutional, of course. It's elected by the voters statewide, as we know, and it's an independent position. Fundamentally, let's just talk about the office. The fundamental responsibility of the office is to set the budget, help the legislature set the budget, tell the legislature how much money they have to spend, but it's got to collect all the money, it manages all the money, and then it manages the spending. It's got eyes on the spending, and that's one reason I'm so excited about it. People don't understand often the scale of Texas, and we're spending way over $500 million a day, every single day. That's over $350,000 every minute of every day. And we're also, the comptroller is also the procurement officer for the state, and there's over 200 state agencies. And there's so much more the comptroller does. It's really a huge undertaking, 3,000 employees, and it's a full-time occupation. It's not legislative, of course.
Okay, so let's talk about some of those things. I, in my job, spend a lot of time driving around Texas, which means, during the primary season, saw a lot of Don Huffines billboards out there, political ads for the race. One of the things that I would see on those billboards was, DOGE Texas, right? This was something you were advocating for. Tell me a little bit about what that means, what that looks like to you.
Of course, I appreciate that question, because that was the message that resonated. That's why I won by such a landslide, and what I just said. But DOGE is Department of Government and Efficiency. It's more of a verb now than anything, right? It's a verb. Everybody knows what it is. But it's about having eyes on our spending primarily. And I'm a business guy, and I have a lot of successful businesses, and I know that a dollar we don't spend is a dollar we earned, and it's really simple as that. And so, can we make government more efficient? That's really the question. Are we getting a good value for every dollar we're spending? Can we consolidate different functions, either in the comptroller's office or in other state agencies? And just ask simple questions, like I did when I found that corrupt organization in Dallas County, government organization. Why do you exist? What's your purpose? Are you really accomplishing what the legislature directed you to accomplish? Who's your customer? And it's the taxpayers. So DOGing is about, to me, understanding that the money belongs to the people. It belongs to you and me. Government doesn't create any money, and it takes the money by force. The least we could do is make sure that it's being spent correctly. And to make sure that we could consolidate is making sure we've got scale in our procurement division. Are we getting the best dollar spent? Is anyone else, if we're buying a product or a service, are we absolutely getting the lowest dollar Is anybody else getting it cheaper from that company than the state of Texas? I hope not. That's what many things we're going to be digging into. So to give you a quick sample of that.
Okay, excellent. I want to read just a brief excerpt from your website because it focuses on something specific that I want to ask about.
Sure.
On your issues page, you say you will shift the focus of the comptroller's office away from auditing businesses and toward aggressively auditing government spending, finding savings and returning budget surpluses to taxpayers through property tax relief for businesses, renters, and homeowners. So, for those who may not know or understand, right, one of the functions of the comptroller's office is tax enforcement, right, and auditing businesses to ensure they're in compliance. There are hundreds of people in the office focused on that. Is what you envision essentially shifting those people from doing that work on, how does that look in general? Will they no longer be auditing, businesses and really be focusing on agencies? What's the breakdown of how that works?
Well, yes, not completely. Not completely.
Okay.
Right now, the FTEs are about 600 auditors.
Right.
That's not full. They're having difficulty hiring auditors. But say we get it up to 600, that's my goal, or more. I think we'll be doing a lot of shifting around, and the org chart's going to look a lot different when I'm there. But yes, absolutely. I'm going to put a lot of those auditors auditing government. And that's what I promised the people when I ran for office, and that's what I'm going to do. And look, we've got different issues that affect the comptroller's office, and whether it's when people are having tax compliance issues, businesses, individuals, the process takes too long to resolve those. We have administrative law judges, and they take way too long to get those hearings. But businesses and individuals and whoever owes the money is still going to be paying it. But like I said earlier, if we can save $1, we earned $1. And what I'm saying is that I can use the bully pulpit to focus on property tax relief. I think it's the #1 issue for the legislature this year. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Texans are tired of renting their property from the government and never owning it, whether it's their home or their business. And so I'm going to focus on using my bully pulpit and helping the legislature. What can we do? What's the best approach to get property tax relief? And, of course, I got a lot of opinions on that.
Well, let's talk about this. You talk about the bully pulpit. I mean, one of the things I wanted to kind of drill into is how much do you feel in your office you will have the opportunity to implement change or require change, or how much of it is bringing to light the issues that you see and then, going to the legislature or whoever else to try to, put those changes into law?
Well, a lot of it's both. We'll have a list of legislative priorities for the comptroller's office, which, of course, reflect for the state of Texas, and we give that to the legislature, and we hope they act on all that, and I'll be communicating with them. And one thing I'm going to do as comptroller is make sure I have a real open-door policy to the members. When I was in the Texas Senate, it didn't seem to work that way. And a lot of members really didn't understand what happened. We appropriate the money, and then we don't know really. It's no one really overseeing it. The legislature meets 140 days every other year, and and I'll say, well, who's watching over this? You mean you're not? I'm not. So we need good eyes and ears on that. I can use the bully pulpit a lot, and I will. But it's also here's the thing. I'm the chief financial officer, right, for the state of Texas. Well, if the chief financial officer, I have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that the money is being spent correctly. It's not being stolen, that we don't have fraud involved. It's a nonpartisan issue, right? If you got fraud, most people in America and in Texas particularly, and I'm always Texas first, we want people to be held accountable. The Texans are very thirsty for that. They want to know that if people are taking the money and they're not supposed to be, that they're going to be accountable. They're going to go to jail, and that's what I'm going to focus on. Can I just tell you a quick issue on that? When I was in the Texas Senate, there was and I tell this tale a lot because it's not a tale, it's a true story. There was a a line on my property tax bill, and it said Dallas Equal Fund, and I was what in the world is that? I don't even know. Then I dug into it, and it said Dallas County Schools. I said, what in the world is that? I'm not even in their district. I represented the north half of Dallas County. No one told me to dig into this group. Nobody formed a committee. Nobody formed a study group. It was just old Don digging into it, and I went and asked him a lot of questions. I said, why do you exist? Simple things I've already said. And they couldn't answer it. They really couldn't get me clear answers. And they were spending over $100 million annually. They had an elected-wide board, county-wide. And bottom line is I started digging into them. We got the Rangers involved, and we got the FBI involved over a 3-year period. And they were stealing millions of dollars from Dallas County taxpayers. And 6 people pleaded out and went to jail. I got a bill done to close them down overnight. So it was the largest takedown of a government agency in modern Texas history. And including the mayor pro tem of the city council of Dallas went down, and he got 7 years. But what I bring that up because what that group was spending in 1 year, the state of in 1 year, the state of Texas spends in 9 hours. So, and it was corrupt, and it was an elected agency. I'm not saying we got a lot of that, but I'm telling you, if you don't look, you're not going to find it. And I was doging before anybody knew the word. So,
do you see within the powers of that office the ability in any way to, essentially take things into your own hands? Like withhold money or require changes in how agencies are run, or is that something that more is necessary to go through other avenues of government?
Well, I appreciate that question. Yes, to answer your question, I have to. I'm the chief financial officer. If you're running, I'm a businessman, right? And if my chief financial officer says, okay, I've got a budget for something, and I give them the budget, and I come back and they spend all the budget. And I say, well, okay, let's ask questions about that. Where did the money go? What did you really spend it on? And they can't answer that. And they can't answer, well, I don't know. Well, I just relied on this bureaucrat to tell me this. And, well, what did they know? I don't know. Let's dig into it. I would be an accomplice to a possible crime. If all those people are stealing money, I don't think they are. I don't know. But if I don't look, do you think I should take Texas taxpayer money and keep funding it? Let me just give you an example, okay? I traveled all over the state of Texas for this election, and I've traveled all over the state for years, and that's why I won by such a landslide. And we got outspent. Did I tell you that? Did I tell you that already? Okay, we did, and it was millions of dollars. But people, when I get out of the car, people would hand me a folder, a file. Every week, I get more information in, either delivered to my office in the mail or via email. Folders, they could be 6 inches thick, 1 inch thick. They could be a letter of the corruption that's in their county, in their school district, in their appraisal district, and their county commissioners. These are local people that are totally frustrated. They get no action, no relief, and they're begging me as I get out, please help us. This is all the files you need. Don't know. I'm not in the position. I haven't had time to dig into that. And so people say, Huffines, how are you gonna do it? First thing I'm gonna do is look at that. I mean, there is a lot of corruption in Texas, unfortunately. We're not immune to that. The scale that we deal with is massive. And there's a lot of money. And so, yes, I'll be looking at a lot of things.
Okay, excellent. You talked a little bit about reorganizing the office. Tell me what's your vision there? Do you feel like the level of the workforce is appropriate? Do you feel like there are people who need to be, swapped out for other people or positions?
I don't know that for sure because I'm not there, right? We'll be interviewing a lot of folks. Obviously, when I get there, there's 3,000 people. We'll be making decisions on all that. But I'm a business guy. I don't buy a business. I'm not buying this business. As you probably know, I'm not taking a salary. I'm not looking for a new job to make money. When I was in the Senate, I'm the only elected office holder at the time in Texas history that ever took a penny from the state of Texas. No pay, pension, health care, and I'm going to do the same as comptroller. But I'm looking to downsize government and make it doubly efficient. AI is going to have a lot to do with that. We all know that tidal wave is coming. There's no doubt about it. But let's just make sure that we're as efficient as possible. To answer your question, yes, I'll be analyzing and reorganizing with an org chart. That's probably different, but that takes a while to get your arms around, right?
Absolutely. Okay, let's talk about the relationship with other offices. This is the comptroller has an interesting history here. Dating back to when John Sharp was comptroller, he instituted these government efficiency reviews. At the time, they were very popular, and in fact, I was reading yesterday about how President Clinton actually pulled John Sharp up and used him as an example of how he wanted to do similar efficiency reviews at the national level. He was followed by Carol Keaton Strayhorn. She was clashed a little bit more with the leaders, in which at some point folks in the legislature actually removed some of the powers of those reviews and put them in another office in the Legislative Budget Board. A lot of people, it was reported at the time, felt like she was, using these reviews less for efficiency sake and more for her political future. She ended up eventually running against Rick Perry for governor in that office. You, of course, have run against Greg Abbott before for governor. What is your relationship with him like now?
Well, thank you for asking that question. A lot of people are very curious about that since I did run against him, of course. He called me the day after the election, and he had his candidate, obviously, and congratulated me. We had a 25-minute discussion, and then a couple weeks ago, he invited Mary Catherine, my wife, and I to the governor's mansion, and we had a great meal together, 3-hour meal together. He's very generous, him and Cecilia, to do that, and we're aligned. We're aligned on many issues that affect Texas, and we're going to work together. It's really critical that we do. I'm going to work with the governor. I'm going to work with the Speaker of the House and, of course, the Lieutenant Governor. We all have to work together to make sure we solve, Texas problems and deliver a great conservative budget, because the money belongs to us, the people. So I'm good with the governor, and I'm good with everybody. I know a lot of people in the legislature, and this is a Republican legislature, so we're all united, and we're going to be united in the fall, too.
How much would you see it as your job? I mean, not just the governor, but the lieutenant governor and the legislature and others, to serve as sort of a watchdog for their actions and their spending?
Well, that's a good question. I'll say this. I am, the taxpayer watchdog. And excuse me just a second.
Sure.
And I'm going to keep that reputation. I'm going to be the taxpayer watchdog. So if we're spending the money where we don't need to spend it, they're going to hear about it. But we're going to work together constantly. I'm not here to embarrass anybody. I'm not here to get too much in the weeds with the legislative priorities. But I do have a bully pulpit, and people expect me to use it.
One of the biggest roles of the comptroller is, of course, the biennial revenue estimate, which is released the day before the legislative session starts and sets basically how much money the legislature can spend. The comptroller has to certify the budget once it is written and can amend the estimates during the legislative session. How do you feel about how that process has gone in recent years? Do you view there needing to be any kind of change in approach to that work as you potentially head into office?
Well, being that I haven't done it before, it's hard to me. I really am not appropriate for me to answer that question. I know that the Speaker and the Governor and the Lieutenant Governor and the Comptroller have to get together, and we got to agree on stuff. That starts this September. So this is a very interesting, unique process right now, where there's this transition or there's not a transition or what's going to happen. But I'm open for suggestions on how to do the budget. I've got my ideas how to do the budget, and I'm sure they do too. Just simple questions. Do we do the budget the best way? Why don't we have zero-based budgeting and other things like that? And you know, to get rid of the use it or lose it mentality in government. So, you know, so I'm open to whatever the legislature suggests, and I'll have my opinions.
Okay, very good. I mean, one of the, you know, sort of awkward situations around this, right? Of course, you have a general election in November. If you were to win that, you would be inaugurated in late January. The BRE comes out before then. Do you feel like you should be involved in that process at all leading up to then? Or do you feel like you should kind of reevaluate it if you were to come into office afterward when that time happens?
Absolutely, I should be involved, or I'm going to have to reevaluate it. I mean, I've got to certify a budget that I really wasn't involved in. That's not the best approach. And
okay, great. Another, you know, new role of the comptroller's office is, of course, administering the voucher program. You have been a major supporter of this. You were advocating for this in the legislature when you were in it, back when it felt unrealistic for it to pass, right? There was, you know, a lot of opposition in the House at that time. Now it is here. You have witnessed its rollout with the comptroller's office. How do you feel like that's going right now?
well, it's going well. I think the significant thing about it is the number of families that have applied. I mean, 274,000 families, and with minimal marketing, I should say. I would venture to guess that if you went out there to the government school system today and asked anybody if they knew about it, you know, 9.5 out of 10 people would say no, they didn't know about it. And so it just shows how thirsty Texans are for great education or some change, something different, whether they're disabled or whatever it is. And look, I have been a huge advocate of it, because I want our government school systems to be the best they can possibly be. I'm also a free market man, and I believe in the free market and capitalism. It's what saved the world, and it's going to save our government schools. We need them to compete. We don't want monopolies, and we certainly don't want a government monopoly. This is the best solution to make the government schools the best they can be, and they're going to compete. They'll learn how to do it. There's no question. They'll learn why people aren't leaving. But the customer is right. The customer is the kid and the parent in that chair. And if they are not getting served, they need an option, as simple as that. And so I'm a champion of it, and I think it's going to go good, and I think we see the demand right now, and I think it's going to do nothing but substantially increase.
Do you envision advocating for more money for that program in the future?
Well, actually, the legislation that was passed requires the comptroller, the way I read it, to add to the budget everyone on the wait list. Now, the legislature doesn't have to fund it, but I am supposed to present them a budget with everybody on the wait list in the budget.
Okay, very good.
Yes, I think it will be added. To answer your question.
You think the legislature will
Yes.
do that? Yes.
I think the political pressure is there. They see it. Everyone sees it, and the members see it, and like I said, that was minimal marketing.
The most recent legislative sessions have been marked by pretty significant surpluses, right? Growth in sales tax revenue, oil and gas revenue, federal COVID funds. A lot of things have created what up until a few years ago were sort of unprecedented surpluses for the legislature to spend. Feels like maybe this upcoming session might be a little different. Do you anticipate there being less money to spend this time around?
Well, of course, I'm not there. I can't give you the details on all that, but no, we're still going to have a surplus. And I like to look at it as I think we've overcharged the customer. And we need to give a lot of that surplus back to Texans. And I'm promoting, of course, like I have on the campaign trail, I'm promoting to give it back in property tax relief. However the legislature wants to do it, I'm in favor of it, and I know that's the #1 issue, like I said. So I think they're going to make a lot of progress on that.
what would your response be if you feel like the legislature did not sufficiently fund property tax cuts?
Well, let's talk a minute about wealth creation. How can Texas government, what's the role of government? You know, really, what do? We forcibly take money from people, but we've got to deliver a good service to people. The taxpayer, that's our customer, as I keep saying. And property tax is something that can generate wealth if we cut it. It puts more money in people's pocket. And okay, let's just look at and I'm for whatever the legislature comes up with. Any property tax relief is beneficial. But how can we really generate wealth is across the board, start phasing out the M&O tax. But it has to be definitive. It has to be on a glide path to zero. People have to know that. We have to be committed. It has to be constitutional. We have to pass a constitutional amendment that the state of Texas is going to pay all the M&O tax. It already pays about 50% of it. Well, the state should just pay it all. It might take 10 years, 15 years, or 8 years. It depends. But we use our surpluses, and we buy down that rate. And it benefits everyone that pays the rate equally, including businesses, which basically sign the paychecks, don't have any of that. I will point out that my research shows that real quick, I don't want to get too much in the weeds, but businesses and commercial property represent over $1 trillion worth of that. All that is sold on a net operating income. And property tax is the largest expense of any business because they're in strip centers or triple net leases. Well, they got to pay it. Well, a business is sold on a multiple of its net earnings. Commercial real estate, that building, everything is sold on a multiple of its net operating income. And if you can take that down, every dollar you save, those businesses, is a multiple of how much it's worth. It could be a 20 multiple, 10 multiple, or 25 multiple. And that, our research shows, it will create tens of billions of net worth for Texans if we can do away with that. And guess what they do with that money? They spend it. Then sales tax goes way up. They'll laugh or curb, the supply demand. You cut taxes, and government makes more money.
All right, let's talk about. I mentioned your billboards earlier.
Yeah.
Another message on the billboards was fighting DEI, right? What do you envision the comptroller's role being in this topic, this issue, and also how do you define DEI?
Well, thank you for that question. If the legislature and the governor have spoken, I've got an obligation to enforce it if I can. Right? I'm not going to. And if I see there's a government agency or my agency that is involved in DEI, and the governor says we're not going to have it, the legislature says we're not going to have it, I'm not going to have it. As simple as that. We're not going to do that. And if an agency, I'm not sure, or should they get money to break the law? You're going to ask, well, okay, then I don't know if that's a good idea. And it's not a good idea, and I'm not going to let them do that. As simple as that. I'm not going to let a university or a state agency or my agency break the law over the wills of the state statute. So they might not get their money. Simple as that. I'm going to at least try to enforce the law.
I mean, what would cross the threshold to you for being in a situation where you would feel like you would need them to not, as you say, get their money? Like, what is that? I mean, DEI can be such a sort of amorphous topic depending on how you talk about it. Like, what is that? What would that actually look like in your mind?
Well, I have to look at the legislation and really study it and make sure that we're following the law. And if it's ambiguous, we have a little bit of leeway to interpret it. I don't like ambiguous laws. I like everything being very definitive. I don't want the comptroller having to interpret a lot of things. I don't want us interpreting tax law. I want it to be clear. So a lot of things that aren't clear, at the office, I will be asking the legislature to give more clarity.
Gotcha. I mean, one of the things I've been sort of trying to, I guess, drill into, understand from you is like, how willing are you to use the levers at your disposal to, restrict cash to what you may envision or see as bad actors, either if it's around DEI, whether it's around efficiency or anything else like that. Like, what do you see, how much, for lack of a better term, wiggle room do you think you have to step in when you feel like you see something wrong within government, whether that's an agency or legislative spending?
Well, I appreciate the question, Matthew. Again, I've got a fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayer, period. And they expect me to step in. Whether I'm stepping in on the with the legislature to help and communicating what I'm seeing, what we're experiencing across the state or in this agency or that agency, can we get some legislation done to fix it? And if that's not the case, I'll have to evaluate everything when I see it. And to understand the significance of it, the severity of it, are they, how bad is it? And I'm telling you, if they're stealing it, we got a problem.
Let's talk about the general election a little bit. How do you view the climate out there right now, political climate? It's a midterm election. Oftentimes, the president's party can struggle there. We are, of course, though, in Texas, right? Mm-hmm. What do you see both for yourself and other Republicans, coming down in November?
Oh, we're going to smoke it. It's not even going to be close. We're going to smoke it. Hey, look, this is Texas. This is Texas. Our culture is unique. We're special. Do we want to be like all the other states? No. Our heritage is unique, and our party represents that. And I ask, we want a limited government. That's a conservative principle. We want to take as little money from the taxpayer as possible to deliver the very best product possible. And that's a conservative message. That's a Republican message. We're a party that believes in God. We're a party that believes that we need to have morals. We're a party that believes in law and order. We're a party that believes in the free market. We want everyone to have equal opportunity. We want everyone to be as rich as they want to be. We want everyone to have joy in their life. And we want everybody to be morals, to have great morals and great ethics. Texas is special. Our heritage was founded on the blood of our patriots. We're not going to change that. And I don't think anybody coming here that wants us to change it.
Another thing that I saw on your website, we talked about DEI, we talked about DOGing the government. You talked at times about preventing government funds from landing in the hands of radical Islamists. What do you mean by that when you talk about that as a priority?
Tell me again real quick.
I believe on your site, you talk about fighting DEI and also preventing government funds from
going to radical Islamists. Yeah, sure, of course. Well, this is about terrorism. That's really what it's about. The governors declared that Muslim Brotherhood and CARE are terrorist organizations, and of course we're not going to allow government money, taxpayer money, to go to any organization that's affiliated with them. I mean, we are at war right now with Islamic nations, so it's even more germane now than it was a few months ago.
There's been some discussion around the voucher program about schools associated with the Muslim faith being denied access. Do you what's your view on that? Should Muslim schools be allowed to participate in the program?
This isn't about religion. This is about terrorism, and that's what it's about.
Okay. So in that case, if a school is affiliated with Muslims, with the Muslim religion, but is like many Muslims in Texas, law-abiding, faithful, people, members of the community, you don't see any issue with them being allowed to participate?
As long as they're not affiliated with the terrorist organizations. Like I said, this is not about religion. This is about terrorism.
Okay, very good. I want to ask, the other thing that you have been in the news about lately was your purchase of the ranch in New Mexico that was owned by Jeffrey Epstein. Tell us about the decision to buy that ranch.
Sure. Well, it's really a nothing burger. The property was on the market for several years. Sotheby's had it listed, and then they lost the listing, and the concierge auction company was going to auction the property, and so we decided to buy it and turn a place of darkness into a place of light. As simple as that. They assured me that the revenue and the money they were getting would go to the victims, and it did, and I was happy to help them out. And so that's the process. I was converting that ranch into a Christian retreat, and we had a lot of ideas to do it and how to do it, and so that's ongoing, and that's what I'm going to do.
Excellent. Have the authorities asked to visit the ranch? Would you make it available to them if they did?
Of course we would. Absolutely, 100%, and I have. No one ever asked to come out there. We asked people to come out. They assured me that they didn't need to. And so now that 3 million pages being dropped, there's a lot more emphasis on that, and I get it. I want answers. And so the Attorney General's office is out there and done their investigations, and I wasn't there, but it's my understanding they haven't found anything, but they have complete free reign. Any law enforcement agency they can come out there anytime they want, and they have been. And I don't know if they will continue to, but that's up to them.
Okay, reminder for folks, audience questions. If you have a question, you can submit it online. Our events director, Matt Ewald, is sending them to my phone. So if you look at me reading my phone, I'm not playing the Wordle over here. I'm looking at the questions. I'm going to go to the audience questions right after this, but just one last question for you. If you win the general election, serve a 4-year term, and are at the end of that term and looking back, how will you define success? What should we look at? What metrics? What anything should we view to decide whether Don Huffines was a successful comptroller?
Delivering on my campaign promises. I don't make promises I don't deliver, and it won't be from a lack of trying. And I've got a lot of those on the website, and people expect me to do that, and they trust me to do that, and that's what I'm going to do. And a lot of that is making sure we're efficient in government, and we root out fraud, waste, and abuse, and we hold people accountable.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, so let's go to some of your questions now. I'm going to ask from John in East Texas. He asks, what is your philosophy on broadband grants for closing the digital divide in Texas?
Well, I can tell you, I get a lot of comments from a lot of businesses and people about that whole division now, giving out the grants and things like that. I'm not there, so I can't answer it completely, but I think it needs to be looked at, and we need to make sure that rural Texans are getting the service they need, and the original intent of the legislation, federal money and the state money, is being spent wisely and properly and effectively. That's the goal.
Do you know, there are a lot of grants that are issued through the comptroller's office. Are there any that you feel like need to be cut? Is there a process that you would want to go through to review those?
Well, I'll be doing a process to review everything. There's nothing off limits, and I think that's my job as chief financial officer. If the state legislature or the federal government that says this is going to be spent in this area, we're going to follow up on that. But I've got to be sure that it's being spent correctly. Again, that we're not just whimsically awarding contracts to these people. The bid process isn't being handled correctly. We got to make sure that it's done right.
Excellent. Okay, let's see here. I want to ask this. This is from Renee in Austin, and I suspect maybe Renee might be a comptroller's office employee, because she asks, the comptroller employs a lot of folks. What sort of boss will you be? How will you maintain the good employee morale established under the Hager administration?
Well, team members as a business person, having loyalty and a sense of purpose with our team members, having an open door with the team members is huge. I'll be there every day. This is a 6-day job, 10 hours a day. And I want to visit with the team members, talk to them, and build up our morale, because they need to know their purpose. Why are they there? I need to know that. How are they accomplishing their mission? And I think it's going to be a great relationship with the team members in the comptroller's office, because I know we're all working for the same goal.
Excellent. Cole from Round Rock asks, in 2022, when running for governor, you told the Texas nationalist movement that you would support a referendum on Texas independence. Do you support Texas independence?
I think people have a right to weigh in on this. I don't know if it's, how much popularity it has, but I don't see any reason that people couldn't weigh in on it. People could have a vote, but it's not. Look, I'm not supporting necessarily seceding from the nation. Sam Houston didn't want to do that. He didn't like that idea, and it didn't go good for Texas. So I'm not trying to repeat that at all. But I do like the fact that people have a voice, and whatever it is that they want to have Texas do.
Excellent, thank you. John in Austin asks, through rulemaking and policy, the comptroller's office has long had a reputation for stretching the authority the legislature intended or clearly authorized, leading to many lawsuits. What are your thoughts on addressing this? Do you agree with the premise of that question?
Not that I've seen. I really don't. I haven't seen the comptroller. I mean, John Sharp, who I visited with last week, we didn't talk about the litigation. Look, I'm sure there'll be litigation. I don't doubt that. That's why we need a really good AG. But John told me that he saved $4 billion when the legislature really needed the money, and I think I can save a lot more than that. That was 25 years ago. How you do that, it might be overstepping some of the legislative authority. I mean, what the comptroller has, maybe not. But our goal is to be efficient, and that's what I'm going to do and save taxpayer money.
Excellent. In your opinion, does the comptroller have unilateral authority to eliminate initiatives, programs, or agencies that have been created and funded by the legislature? If so, under what circumstances?
No, I don't think so. It would depend. I don't think so. I don't think they'd like that.
All right, Sandy from McAllen asks, how do you plan to fund more TIFA students, TIFA being the Texas Education Freedom Accounts, vouchers, ESAs, or your incentives if you shift the agency's focus from auditing businesses, which can lead to less tax collection to fund those new students or programs that come from the GR fund?
Well, I don't think, I tend to increase the revenue for the state of Texas through spending and savings, right? And so I don't think not auditing the businesses is gonna make give us a decrease in our revenue. I really don't. Most businesses just want to pay the tax they owe, and they want certainty in the process. And they want clarity in the process, and so that's what I'm going to give them. Clarity and certainty, and then and we'll keep auditing businesses. There's no doubt. If you owe it, you need to pay it. But I think I can save a lot of money by auditing government, and that's going to increase our revenue.
Do you think that those employees are transferable? Like, are those skills the same, auditing the businesses in the government?
That's an interesting question, and let's hope so. We can train them to. It is a different skill set. Definitely, it's a different skill set. But I'm optimistic that we can train those folks to do both.
Okay, very good. A good question here. I mean, what do you make of Governor Abbott's performance? Recently, and
yeah.
And I was just going to say too. I mean, do you think your run for governor in 2022 had an impact on as this question frames it, pushing him further to the right?
I think the governor's doing a good job now. I think he's doing a real good job. And my campaign definitely had an impact on him and also on the state. And everything I've campaigned for in my political career has an impact. Things I advocated for in the state Senate to things I advocated on the campaign trail. It has an impact. And so, but I think he's doing a good job right now, and I'm happy to work with him.
If you're elected to comptroller, do you view that as being your last stop in elected office?
Well, I like to point this out. A lot of people run for comptroller, and they won, and they all thought they were going to be something else, right? They all wanted to be governor, lieutenant governor. Not one comptroller has ever been governor in the history of Texas. And only one's ever been LT, and that was Bob Bullock. So it hasn't been a great stepping stone. There's no stone to step on. So we've only had 27 comptrollers in the history of Texas. So we've had more governors than we've had comptrollers.
Indeed. Okay, thank you. So you've pledged, if elected, to downsize government and improve efficiency. Should state employees, particularly those in the comptroller's office, be concerned about potential staff reductions? Are you going to explore, when you step in, reducing the size of the staff in that office?
Yes, that's what DOGE is about.
Yeah.
Can we get our work done with less people? That's what a good business person would always ask, right? Can we get this done with less people and spend less money? AI is coming. That's going to have a lot of impact.
Do you expect, if you are elected, do you expect to come in with a plan for how that should look, or is it going to take some time to sort of evaluate the lay of the land?
Oh, it'll definitely take some time.
Okay, very good. Let's see here. Another audience question: Republicans have led Texas for roughly 30 years. Is it fair to say that any current waste and inefficiencies in state government stem from Republican-led priorities?
Well, I like to use this metaphor. We all have garages, and they just pile up. Everything gets put in the garage, and this is the last thing you want to do. You don't want to take a weekend off cleaning it out and things like that. But but it still gets in there. And so I look at it, that's what I'm going to do, is clean out the garage. And everybody loves pulling in once it's cleaned out, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to clean out the garage and get it done.
That resonates as a homeowner with me. A very messy garage. Yeah. So very good. Tell me just a little bit about your. I'm going to go big picture now after going into specifics. Your political philosophy, like how did you come to believe what you believe about government and policy?
Well, that could be a 10-minute discussion on that deal. But let's just take it from this. What is the role of government? What's the proper role? What's the end game? I always like to ask people, what's the end game? What is it you want? Where do you see government? What's the purpose of government? Why did our founders create us? How did they create? What were they thinking? And the fundamental thing I'll tell you is that our liberties come from God, not the government. That's what makes us special. That's what makes us unique. And I wish I could get that lesson across to every elected office holder. The fundamental role of government is always to defend our God-given liberties. Government never has enough of our money, and the more money they have, basically, the less liberty we're going to have. And, Madison knew that, Jefferson knew that, and we don't want to forget it. I think it's critical that we always remember that. Because the less government we have, the longer the government can survive.
How did your experience in the Senate, how do you think that would shape you as someone in a statewide elected office?
Well, as a businessman, I went down there to solve problems. And I realized that that's not always what members want to do. And often they create a problem, or they'll try to solve the symptom of the problem instead of the problem itself. And there's really no sense of urgency. As I have a huge sense of urgency to get things done quickly. As a business person, we find a problem, we monetize the solutions, and we keep moving. I'm not a fan of committees. There's a lot of people on different committees and volunteers across the state that serve the state of Texas. That's just not my leadership style. I'm not. I'm a guy that's the buck stops on my desk, and I'm going to make the decision. I'm not perfect. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm sure of that. But I'm going to own them, and we're going to learn from them, and we're going to move on. We're going to move, and we're going to keep moving with speed and efficiency and with a sense of purpose. And that's not how government operates. It just doesn't. They're not there to solve the problems. And I was really surprised by that.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. It's been an interesting conversation. I want to say thank you to all of our Tribune members who have been here and helped support this event. Best of luck in the campaign, and it's great talking with you.
Thank you, Matthew. I appreciate it.